Hello there, this is Jeremy from Rauta. Today's topic in opinion videos is there such a thing than too many bands, too many side projects per one person? Is that even possible, or should just people focus on so many things as possible or other things to ponder? Today's beer, what we have here is a Children of Bodom lager, which will be in review the next day after this one, so stay tuned for that. Um, I was recently listening to Paganizer's 10th album, I think, which is also there soon for review. And that's just one of those bands by multi-talent Rogga Johansson from Sweden. You might know him various bands. And if you take a look, for example, at his Metal Archives list, he has just so many bands that it's kind of impossible to track just everything there and figure out what he's been up to and what he has recorded along the years. Now, obviously, he's not the only one in question in terms of creating metal for many different bands. Some more active than others, some more like therapy solo projects and whatnot. For example, Ville Pystynen from Horna and other bands, he also has or have had like more than I think dozen different bands, and too many of them, well, too many and too many, but let's say many of them are black metal. So like, what is the reason for Rogga to have like a few different death metal bands? What is the reason for Ville to have a few black metal projects, and so on? There are obviously a lot of other band members, around different kind of genres that have been venturing back and forth in different kind of projects, various genres. Some might have one black metal project, one death metal project, then one, synthesizer music project, some ambient like project, even some old school heavy metal thing, then even maybe a, I don't know, a disco thing, techno music project, or just, some weird ass industrial music, and the list goes on. The thing is, what I'm wondering, that would these artists actually be better at what they do if only they would be, focusing on maybe one or two bands at a time? Obviously, there is no simple answer to this question or pondering, because honestly, the thing is that each and every artist is different. Everybody is kind of a unique snowflake. We all know this by watching Fight Club. And as much as this cynicism goes, there's some truth. Every artist creates the art he or she is doing the way that us normal people, I don't say that I'm normal, but the regular person who doesn't have even a single band might not just understand. I mean, I do have my own band things, and for me it kind of makes sense to focus on maybe just one band at a time. And the reason is this: as much as any people playing with guitar, drums, or whatever, since it's able to create, a bunch of riffs, melodies, ideas for music, the thing is, if you just spread a lot of things around, then you have no focus. That can lead to both great results as well as bad results. I mean, let's say in case of Rogga, many of his bands are not exactly top-notch death metal. I'm often wondering when I'm listening to his music, I mean, he's a talented guitar player and vocalist at least, I'm wondering what if he just went for the best part and put it in the one basket, creating this really good death metal album, instead of having like, I don't know, 5, 10 different bands and throwing these ideas like, there goes one good idea, there goes another, and oh, there goes another again, and so forth. And instead of having these, I don't know, one good band releasing a good album, let's say every 2 or 3 years, there's a lots of band that creates just like quite decent, but even sometimes really mediocre stuff, versus creating these good albums. So the question remains, what happens when you lose this focus? Now, once again, it's not a so simple question as that. Say there is a big band like Metallica. They want to put all the creative, all the best ideas in that, because obviously they will be touring, they will be, recording an album, and their money comes out of that. But maybe there's an idea that doesn't exactly fit this particular box, like Metallica or Iron Maiden, doesn't matter. And then you have like, okay, I don't want to share this idea with that band, or maybe they didn't understand this great idea I'm having. I'm gonna put it in my own therapy project. Then another member comes by, joins your new therapy project. That becomes also a new band, not maybe full-time band, but band nevertheless. Then you also start having ideas that doesn't even fit your second band. And once again, you kind of multiply. And then you have your third band, maybe fourth band. Or maybe you have these weird ideas which are just too weird to fit any of your metal bands. You start going synth music, you start doing industrial thing, etc. And then you're like, hey, maybe I just need to add some guitar layers in that music as well. And that's when things start to really lose this focus. Instead of having, say, an old school heavy metal project here, your main band, death metal for here, and then you have your industrial project here. It's kind of a fine, it's kind of a easy to, relatively easy anyway, to maintain all the focus. Different stuff goes to different boxes. That's kind of a given. Whenever you move house, you know what to do. You put your kitchen stuff here, living room stuff here, CD collection goes there, so forth. But when things, start slipping, when you're like, okay, this industrial band needs some riffs, and you start putting your cooler death metal riffs there instead of having them in your death metal project. Or maybe your heavy metal band bitch is just, creating new stuff and evolving, progressing, and you're just, wait a second, I kind of could fit this also in that band, but also there. Which way to choose? So the result might be, you don't want to just this one to have all the leftovers, but it's also that you want to keep some quality here, because obviously this is the band you started working with earlier maybe. And that's when you start kind of sharing. It's like having, 10 kids. Everybody needs to have their set of candy. It's not like you give your two best favorite kids candy and the rest are like, nope, I already spent all my focus here. So when this happens, that you start to see your different bands as pets or kids, you just cannot like basically neglect them, in a way of, hey, this is only the leftovers idea bands. Doesn't matter what happens to that, which might be exactly a healthy way of seeing those extra bands, extracurricular activities, as you might put it. But obviously, some people are so creative that they can create a lot of different material for different kind of bands without even losing the touch, so to speak. But still, it makes me wonder, would they be even better if these extra bands didn't exist in the first place? Now, obviously, my point with Metallica was purely fictional. As we all know, there is no big band besides Metallica having Metallica members. But when we go to a, say, different level of metal bands, it doesn't have to be really, small band even. Say, for example, with this Testament, member, guitarist, he also had a black metal band. Not creating the same quality music as Testament maybe, but still kind of a pro level stuff anyway. So those terms could actually work quite well. Obviously, you don't get to tour as much with your secondary band as with your main priority, but still you could just have them because they are all kind of like so different. But also, I think it's kind of healthy to have these kind of theory projects. So I'm really what I'm trying to say here. My point is that I'm kind of undecided. I'm divided with my opinions when it comes to creating these different bands. On the other hand, they surely make sense. But in, for example, Rauta Johansson's case, I'm not sure. I mean, it starts to seem like so many bands become these pet projects. And like I said, you don't get to neglect. It's not like you have your 4 cats and 5 dogs and you just give food to the cats and like dogs piss off. Some people might be totally okay with this kind of mindset, but I do think that most people who have pets or kids, they don't think like that. I kind of hope they don't. So this is kind of a dangerous path when you have too many bands, too many projects, and you just can't handle all of them full time. Now, once I was writing a review and mentioning that this band is a side project of blah blah blah, and some people got kind of like mad at me, like, how can you say it's a side project that's as much a main band as the other? And I'm like, dude, can you have like two heads? Can you have like two main bands? I mean, where do you draw the line? Okay, now there's a different way of replies coming to these. I've been, doing interviews for a long time, and obviously when I sometimes ask a band that has kind of two main bands, like which goes first? If you are asked for, for a gig or a festival thing to play, which goes first if you have overlapping priorities? The usual answer is the one that actually gets selected first, the one that agrees to do the gig first. So basically, in these terms, we could pretty much say that they are both main bands. But it's not always as simple, because you have to remember bands are made of multiple people. And say multiple people, say 5 in general in metal band, all have their different projects. When all this kind of a time management, calendar management thing becomes kind of a, thing of about priorities and whatnot, it becomes difficult. And these are kind of like abstract things you try to explain you. But imagine 5 guys all having 2 bands. Maybe even bands with that there are no other band members of their so-called main bands playing in these other bands. So suddenly you have like 20 plus people playing in these different bands. Now try to explain all of them why their band is not the priority. And you actually quite soon have these ego problems when people start clashing. So we are not the priority, you are choosing that over our band. It becomes like a thing with multiple romantic or sexual relationships. You're like, you're picking him over me. How does that play out? I'm gonna leave you if you don't leave that. And then we have a problem. Now, it would be kind of easy if all these, say, 5 guys or girls had all their side project which operated solo, or maybe the other people were also part of that. Say 5 guys or gals playing, I don't know, death metal, and the same 5 people would be also playing this thrash metal project or ambient, doesn't really matter. Then it would work out. Like, let's have this black metal project as our main thing, and this ambient project or whatever thrash metal as the secondary thing. This goes first, this comes second. Everything is based on this one, and this is our backup plan. It would make sense, but are people really that sensible? To me, it seems not. So my thing is, people should be thinking more. I don't want to block anybody's creativity. I don't want to say that, hey, you have this cool thrash riff, but since you don't play in a thrash band, just delete it. Give it to somebody else. That wouldn't be a bad idea necessarily, but I think people should be more focused, more like thinking like, okay, can I actually handle 3 different bands, each of which are also playing live shows? If thing is that simple, if only one band plays live shows, well, then it's more easier. But also when you're like recording music, are you sure that you can actually have the high quality in all of those bands instead of, just focusing on 1 or 2 bands? I'm not sure. I'm not really convinced, even though there are these exceptions which are really capable of creating music, good music that is, for many different projects. Most people are certainly not, able to do that. Not in my opinion anyway. So if I just had to come up with one answer to, reply to my own question, would be just cut the rest, focus on the good stuff. Don't do that extracurricular activity unless you're 100% sure you can handle without any compromise. But this is obviously just my take. What are your opinions? Are you familiar with some of your favorite artists having great bands with multiple activities and whatnot? Looking forward to hear you as well, and let's continue our conversation in the comments section. See ya and take care.